Hey Balancers, and welcome to the final episode of 2023 and season 2. I'm your host Erica, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today we've got an end of year reflection in store. Now, for those of you who are long-term listeners, you'll know that the last episode of every year is always a really nice moment for us to stop and reflect together on the year gone by. Now, I like to change these reflections from year to year because no 2 years are the same, and really just at different moments in my life, I think different things stick out to me as important or worth reflecting on. And so this year I've come up with 5 reflective questions. As I say every year, you can do these kind of out loud with me today on the show. You can think about them and just pause this and take a moment to reflect. You can take them down and journal them later or meditate on them later. However you want to do it, it's your reflection of your year. These are just the 5 questions that I've put together that I feel are really, really thought-provoking. And my intention is, and when I was thinking about them and writing them, is I want them to really bring out a sense of groundedness before moving into 2024. So if you're ready to get grounded and almost find a bit of a sense of comfort from the year gone by, then this is the perfect 5 questions to ask yourself before we move into 2024. Question number 1. Did I achieve what I wanted to this year? Think of the goals you set at the beginning of 2023. Revisit them. Now, if you didn't fully achieve the things that you set out, I want you to be very careful in this reflection. We don't want this to be a case of you falling into negative self-talk. We want to be objective when we ask this question. So if we didn't achieve our goals, we want to ask ourselves why. Was it genuinely because of your lack of effort or motivation? Or was it because of things outside of your control? Was it maybe that what you wanted changed and you just didn't rewrite the goal to move with that? What was the actual objective reason? Take your emotion out of it. Could it also have been the way you worded the goal? Like it was always going to be dependent on somebody else's actions as to whether it happened or not. For example, if your goal was to get a certain pay rise of, let's just say $10,000 and you didn't get it. Of course, a part of that is dependent on your performance, but another part of that is dependent on the company you work for, their budget, their ability to do increases, what else is going on in the team, capacity, etc. So sometimes when we word our goals, if we're not careful in how we do it, they can be drafted in a way that they're always reliant on somebody else external to you making things happen for you to achieve that goal. And so I think the biggest thing here is to reflect on your efforts to make that thing happen. If you feel upon reflection you've done everything you could to try and make that goal a reality, but you weren't met in the middle by the other party that you needed to get that pay rise, then you can take this as an opportunity to really appreciate your efforts and be happy with the work you put in rather than be dissatisfied that you didn't reach your goal. Because at the end of the day, there has to be a point where you're prepared to put in the work to achieve your goal, and you have to let go and surrender of what happens as a consequence. Of course, there are things we can learn along the way, but for those of you who maybe are falling into the category where you didn't exactly achieve your goals, I just want you to be mindful of this. Be more considered and put the attention more on your efforts to make that happen rather than whether it happened or not. Because ultimately, whether it happened or not may have been dependent on somebody else. But if you put in the same amount of work and the same amount of effort, then in my opinion, you've done most of the work to making that goal happen. It's just that tick over at the end to sign it off as being done that you don't yet have. And yes, I say yet. So first one is, did you achieve what you set out? The next one, I included this because this is something I experienced this year a lot. And this is the reflection on where did you feel resistance? When I say resistance, I'm talking about like pushback from the universe, like signs that you need to do a U-turn or just stop, it's almost like things are happening all at the same time to just leave you where you are. You almost want to make a change and it's just not happening. And this could be with anything. You're trying to force a certain type of relationship or a new job, or in my case, I was dying to get a dog this year and it just did not happen. Tried to adopt one, tried to foster one, and every single case fell through. It was just like it wasn't meant to happen. Just think about, was there anything that you felt really strong resistance from the universe on? And I just want to say that resistance is not a feeling of discomfort, right? It's not just you being uncomfortable doing something new or something outside of your comfort zone. It's actually like, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but this happened to me lately and it was so strange. It was like across the span of 2-3 weeks, it was like literally nobody was getting back to me. Leads through the podcast, stuff with work, even personal relationships. It was like my phone was barred from receiving any messages. And in that time, I had my big talk at Dubai Active coming up. So it was almost like everything was put on pause. I had all this resistance from creating this new change, embracing anything new, because, well, this is how I've interpreted it anyway. It's almost like I had to hyper focus in that period and just cut off all distractions. So just interesting to consider if you felt that resistance anywhere in your life, in anything you feel you had to really force, and just think about what that might mean or what lesson it might have been teaching you. Maybe you don't resonate at all with this point, which is a good sign, I guess. It means you're super aligned and there wasn't anything that you had to force or make happen. Everything kind of just flowed. But if you resonate with this idea of resistance and you felt it very strongly, I think it's just one to think about where it showed up for you and maybe what that meant upon reflection. Number 3, I really love this one. And that is reflecting on what moments you were most present. If you're sitting here thinking, oh my God, 2023 went so fast. Like we were in February 5 minutes ago and now it's the end of year. We're talking about Christmas again. Like, it's crazy. If you're in that category of people, consider what moments this year felt long for you. You know, when you take those 2-week holidays and they just feel like they go on forever, you're super present, you're really enjoying them, you really slow down to that pace. Think about any moments you've had like that. It could just be like a day you had with the family, or maybe you went out into nature, or every time you go to the beach, you feel a certain way, or a weekend feels really, really long. Just reflect on like what parts of that are maybe common throughout all the experiences, or what you already know is something that makes you feel really present. Because I think trying to sprinkle that more throughout the next year, 2024, is a really nice way to actually be present as a year goes on, to not let life just kind of wrap around us like a cyclone and just get whisked away in the busyness of life. It's a nice thing to come back to or reflect on firstly, so we know what those things are, and then try and engage in, you know, on a monthly or weekly, whatever you can dedicate to it basis. Because being present and feeling like time is slow is such a gift. And that's just such a pure moment of being present, that if we could fill all our time with that, it would be quite amazing. And might just give you some ideas as things you may want to prioritize, or we can put it on our wants list. So if you guys remember, we talk about the non-negotiables and the wants. This could be something that comes up on your wants list. If it's, I don't know, being in nature, that could be a non-negotiable for your weekends. So just an interesting one to think about. 4, this is a big question. You may not have one answer, you may have multiple, but I think try and approach it with the most obvious one first. And that is, what is the biggest thing that you learned this year? If you get stuck thinking about this one, you can't really pull the lesson, I want you to think about something you would classify as a failure, right? Anything you look at and you feel failure, that language sits around it. I want you to reflect on that, because I guarantee you there was a lesson in that something happening in your life, whether it was a relationship that didn't work out, a job that fell through, a falling out with anything or one, something just not going the way that you'd planned. You know, I really am a firm believer, as I said a couple of weeks ago, you either win or you learn. And so when you go back to something that as a knee-jerk reaction thought of as a failure, I guarantee you'll be able to find a lesson in that. And I think the beautiful part of this is if we can tie up any failures we've had as lessons before we pivot and move into the new year, it's a really nice way to arm ourselves, level our foundation, and just really compile everything that we've grown into this year before we move into the next. And lucky last, number 5, if I could have any different approach in 2024, what would it be? And when I say approach, I mean like a different approach with your mindset, a different approach to your habits or to your health. Pick anything you want, whatever's kind of sticking out for you. When I say, what would you have a different approach to in 2024? Whatever's come up for you, just run with that, right? And think about what that entails for you. I think an ongoing one for me, I've shared this with you guys on the podcast before. I think an ongoing one for me is my mindset towards my self-worth, which is something I'm sharpening and getting better at, but it's definitely a work in progress for me. And for me, that comes down to my approach to slow periods, doing nothing, my output, numbers, things like that are all external to me, that I often hinge on to determine my self-worth, when really it's about coming back to those values that are inside of me, the things that don't change according to my output or what else is happening in the world around me. So that's mine. That's an approach that I'd like to shift and continuously grow in 2024. But just have a think about what kind of sticks out for you, what's a priority, what's something you really want to get on top of moving into 2024. Now, before I wrap up, I really wish I could tell you guys what is coming in January, because I have a crazy lineup of guests that I'm so excited to share with you guys. I've put more of an emphasis on doing in-person interviews because I just think the content is so much better and nicer, and it's really beautiful to connect with these people face to face. So if you're a YouTube fan, then definitely start to check us out on YouTube, because I post the full videos there, so you can see the guests. Obviously, it's nice when you can put a face to the name. But definitely make sure you're connected with us on socials, because I am definitely not going to be able to help myself but to post teasers as we get closer. We will be back on January 22nd, which is a Monday. So I'm taking a month off to just recharge, do a whole lot of planning, a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of chilling, a whole lot of eating, just a whole bunch of everything, just to recharge for the new year, for season 3. And I hope you guys do the same and have a safe and wonderful holidays. I hope you enjoyed today's reflection and that it helps you feel grounded moving into the new year. And of course, we'll be looking at goal setting and balancing in 2024 when we come back. One thing, I keep forgetting to mention this in the last few episodes, sorry guys, but for those of you who don't know, we have a Telegram chat, which is basically like a WhatsApp group where a lot of balancers are in there. We chat every single day basically, and everyone's just sharing different ideas, meditations they're doing, things they're struggling with. And it's just a really nice space to connect with other people who enjoy the podcast and so are on a similar journey to you. So the link to that is in the show notes below. You'll have to download Telegram, which is basically just an app, and it's free to join. So if you guys want to connect with us over the festive break, we'll be in there active. If not, make sure you're linked up with us on socials, as I said, for sneak peeks at what is to come. I have popped some of our favorite highlight episodes of the year below in the show notes. So if you do want to go back and listen to some that you may have missed, or just re-listen to any that have really spoken to your soul, just to fill your walks over the next few weeks or wherever you guys listen to your podcasts, then those are there for your reference as well. Thank you so much, guys, for being on the journey this year, 2023. I'm so excited for what the next is to bring. I'll see you guys in 2024. And until then, stay balanced.